All right, everybody, welcome back. For this deep dive, we are going to be taking a look at blockchain
Okay.
and trying to figure out, what it is, how it works, why it's important.
Yeah.
And I have expert speaker here with me today who's going to be helping us make sense of all of this.
Absolutely.
And we are using a YouTube video from IBM Technology called Blockchain Explained.
Okay.
So, if you want to pull that up on your computer or phone or whatever.
Sure. Yeah, makes sense.
And follow along with us, that'd be great. But we're just going to be, talking about it in a way that hopefully makes sense to everyone.
Yeah, for sure. I think the video does a good job of simplifying things.
Right.
But it definitely helps to have a conversation about it and really solidify those ideas.
Yeah, and I think, I think when it comes to blockchain in particular, a lot of people hear about it.
Right.
And it just kind of goes, in one ear and out the other.
It sounds really complicated.
Yeah.
But once you actually break it down, it's
Yeah.
oh, okay. I can see how this is actually a pretty simple
Right.
concept at its core.
Exactly. And I think that's what we're going to try to do today.
Yeah.
Is, really get to the heart of what blockchain is all about.
Yeah, and why it matters.
Exactly. So the video starts off by comparing blockchain to a digital ledger.
Okay.
So for those of us who are not, tech wizards,
Yeah.
what does that even mean?
Yeah, so basically imagine a traditional ledger, right?
Okay.
Like a physical book where you keep track of every single transaction.
Okay.
And this is something that's been used for centuries in accounting and finance.
Right.
But instead of pen and paper, imagine that same concept, but it's all digital.
Okay.
And instead of being stored in one single location,
Right.
it's actually spread across a huge network of computers.
Okay.
And that's essentially what a blockchain is.
So it's like a shared record-keeping system,
Exactly.
but digital.
Yeah.
Okay. And then it talks about how it's practically impossible to tamper with a blockchain. Right. How does that work?
Well, that's where the chain in blockchain comes in.
Okay.
So imagine you have each transaction, right, or block of transactions, and they're linked to the one before it,
Okay.
like an actual chain.
Okay.
And each block is given this unique digital fingerprint.
Okay.
It's called a hash.
Sure.
And this is where it gets really cool, because if you change even a single character in a block,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to completely alter its hash,
Oh, wow.
making it immediately obvious that something's been tampered with.
So it's like if you were to try to sneakily change the amount on a digital receipt,
Exactly.
and then suddenly the checksum wouldn't add up and everyone would be like, whoa, wait a minute, something's not right here.
Yeah, it'd be like trying to forge a check, but a million times harder.
Right.
Because you have all these computers that have a copy of the ledger,
Yeah.
and they're all constantly checking each other.
Okay, so you would have to tamper with every single copy of that digital ledger in order to actually pull off any kind of change.
Yeah, you need to hack into millions of computers simultaneously.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's practically impossible.
So it's super secure.
Very secure.
Okay, so we've got this super secure, tamper-proof way to record transactions.
Right.
But I think when a lot of people hear blockchain, the first thing they think of is cryptocurrency.
Yeah, for sure.
Is that all it is?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I mean, cryptocurrency was definitely one of the first and most well-known applications of blockchain.
Right.
But it's really just the tip of the iceberg.
Okay.
The video actually talks about two main types of blockchains.
Okay.
There's permissionless and permissioned blockchains.
Permissionless and permission. I feel like an analogy coming on.
Always.
Okay.
So think of it this way. A permissionless blockchain.
Okay.
It's like a public park.
Okay.
Anyone can enter. They can see what's happening.
Yeah.
They can even participate if they want to.
So anyone can join the network.
Yeah.
They can see the transaction history. Yeah.
They can even get involved in validating those transactions.
Exactly.
It's completely open.
Open and transparent.
Okay.
Now, on the other hand, you have permission blockchains.
Okay.
These are more like private clubs or organizations.
Okay.
So they control who can join the network,
Right.
who can access the data,
Okay.
who can participate in the consensus process.
So it's more about having control over, who gets to play in the sandbox.
Exactly.
Okay. That makes sense for, businesses or organizations that are dealing with sensitive information,
Absolutely.
like healthcare records
Yeah.
or financial data.
Supply chain management.
You wouldn't want just anyone to have access to that.
Exactly.
Okay, so permission blockchains are kind of a way to maintain security and transparency,
Right.
but also respect privacy.
Yep. Control as well.
Okay, this is already making my brain do backflips.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
So we've got these different types of blockchains,
Mm-hmm.
each with their own set of rules.
But how do they actually make decisions?
That's a great question.
I mean, if anyone can join a permissionless blockchain,
Yeah.
how do they all agree on, like, what gets added to the ledger?
Right. Well, that's where consensus mechanisms come in.
Okay.
And these are kind of like the decision-making engines
Right.
of the blockchain world.
Right.
So these mechanisms make sure that everyone on the network is on the same page
Okay.
when it comes to validating and adding new blocks of transactions.
So it's like a set of rules that everyone agrees to play by?
Exactly.
Even though there's no, like, central authority calling the shots?
Right. It's completely decentralized.
Okay, the video mentioned something called proof of work,
Yeah.
which sounds pretty intense.
It's definitely one of the more well-known consensus mechanisms.
Okay.
It's used by Bitcoin and a lot of other cryptocurrencies.
Okay.
And basically, it requires participants, who are often called miners,
Okay.
to solve these really complex mathematical problems in order to add new blocks to the chain.
So these miners are using their computing power
Yes.
to solve puzzles.
Yeah, essentially.
And whoever cracks the code first gets to add the next block.
Exactly. And they get rewarded for it, too,
Okay.
which is where the whole, like, Bitcoin mining thing comes from.
Interesting. Oh, okay. And because it takes so much effort to solve these puzzles.
Yes. Very energy intensive.
It makes it really hard for anyone to try to cheat the system.
Right, because you need a massive amount of computing power to outpace everyone else.
Okay, so it's a really clever way to achieve consensus
Exactly.
in a system where there's no central authority.
Yeah. It's very elegant.
But it sounds like it takes a lot of energy.
It does. That's one of the drawbacks for sure.
Okay.
But there are other consensus mechanisms out there as well.
Okay.
And we're constantly exploring new ways to make it more efficient and sustainable.
Okay, so we've got these different types of blockchains. We've got these different ways of making decisions.
Yeah.
But I'm still a little bit unclear on what we can actually do with this technology beyond just trading cryptocurrencies.
Well, that's where things get really interesting. Because it's not just about cryptocurrency.
Right.
There's like a whole universe of applications beyond that.
Okay, like what?
Well, the video touches on something called smart contracts.
Right.
Have you heard about these?
Yeah, I mean, it briefly mentioned them, but I don't really understand, like, what they are or
Sure.
how they work.
So basically, imagine a contract, right?
Okay.
But instead of being written on paper and like filed away somewhere,
Right.
it's actually written in code
Okay.
and stored on the blockchain.
Okay.
And because it's on the blockchain, it's like tamper-proof,
Right.
and it can automatically enforce itself.
So it's like self-executing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like, let's say you're buying something online, right?
Okay.
With a smart contract. As soon as you make the payment,
Yeah.
the product is automatically released to you,
Okay.
and the seller receives their funds
Wow.
without any need for like a middleman.
So, like, no more waiting for, like, escrow to clear or
Exactly.
any of that stuff.
It's all automated, and it happens instantly.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and because it's on the blockchain, it's like super secure
Right.
and transparent.
Okay, so it's like automating trust.
Exactly.
The contract just enforces itself.
Yep.
Okay,
And this opens up a ton of possibilities.
like what?
Well, the video gives the example of supply chain management.
Right.
Like, you could track a product from the factory all the way to the consumer,
Okay.
and every step of the way would be recorded on the blockchain.
Wow.
So you know exactly where it came from, when it was shipped, who handled it.
So it's like complete transparency and accountability.
Exactly. And it can help reduce fraud and counterfeiting.
That's really cool. But I'm also kind of wondering, like, with all this talk about, decentralization
Yeah,
and, like, cutting out the middleman,
right.
does this pose a threat to existing, like, institutions and businesses?
That's a good question, and it's something that a lot of people are talking about.
Yeah.
I think it's important to remember that blockchain is still a relatively new technology.
Right.
It's evolving rapidly,
Okay.
and I think it has potential to be disruptive.
Okay.
But I don't necessarily think it's going to, like, destroy everything.
Okay.
I think it's more likely to lead to, like, an evolution
Okay.
rather than a complete revolution.
So it's not necessarily about replacing existing systems,
Right.
but finding ways to kind of integrate this technology.
Yeah, like we're already seeing businesses in various industries
Okay.
exploring how they can use blockchain to, like,
Yeah.
streamline their operations, make things more efficient,
Okay.
enhance security,
Yeah.
build trust with customers.
So it's all about, like, finding the right balance
Exactly.
between innovation and integration.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Okay. One thing that I'm kind of curious about,
Yeah.
the video mentioned that one of the challenges with blockchain, especially with that proof of work mechanism, is its environmental impact.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So As we talked about before, proof of work requires a lot of computing power,
Right.
and that translates to a lot of energy consumption.
Okay.
And when you have a global network of computers all doing these complex calculations,
Right.
it can put a significant strain on the electrical grid
Okay.
and lead to increased carbon emissions.
So it's kind of like a double-edged sword.
A way, yeah.
We have this amazing technology with all this potential, but it also has this like potentially negative environmental impact.
Right, and that's something that the blockchain community is very aware of,
Okay.
and there's a lot of research and development happening
Okay.
to try to find more sustainable solutions.
Like what?
Well, one of the most promising alternatives is something called proof of stake.
Okay.
And instead of relying on these like energy-intensive computations,
Right.
it's more like a lottery system
Okay.
where your chance of adding a block to the chain
Yeah.
depends on how much cryptocurrency you're holding
Okay.
and are willing to kind of like stake as collateral.
It's interesting.
So it's a much more energy efficient way to reach consensus.
Okay, cool.
And beyond that, we're seeing a lot of advancements in areas like layer 2 scaling solutions,
Okay.
which basically take some of the transaction load off of the main blockchain,
Okay.
which can make it faster and cheaper to use.
So it's kind of like, creating these like express lanes
Exactly.
on the blockchain highway.
Yeah, like a toll road.
Okay, very cool. One thing that I'm still kind of like wrapping my head around
Yeah.
is this whole idea that blockchain can enhance privacy,
Okay.
especially in like business transactions.
Right.
But isn't blockchain supposed to be all about transparency?
Right. So that's where it's important to remember that not all blockchains are created equal.
Okay.
So public blockchains like Bitcoin,
Yeah.
those are transparent by design.
Okay.
But then you have those permission blockchains,
Right.
the ones that are more like private clubs.
Okay.
They can actually be designed with like really sophisticated privacy features where you can control exactly who sees what information.
Oh, okay.
So like imagine a supply chain, right?
Okay.
Where different parties only have access to the data that's relevant to their specific role.
Okay.
So like the manufacturer might see the order details
Okay.
and like the production schedule,
Okay.
but the shipping company would only see like the delivery address
Okay.
and the logistics information.
Gotcha. So it's like giving everyone like a need-to-know basis view of the data.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, so you still get the transparency and the security of the blockchain,
Right?
but you also have that added benefit of like really granular access control.
Okay, wow. I'm like really starting to understand why people are so excited about blockchain.
Yeah.
It's like a Swiss Army knife of technology.
It really is.
It can be applied to so many different industries and problems.
And we're only just scratching the surface.
Right.
Like, I think in the next 5 to 10 years,
Yeah.
we're going to see even more incredible applications of this technology.
Well, expert speaker, thank you so much for taking us on this deep dive into the world of blockchain.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure.
For me personally, I went from feeling like completely lost to now feeling like I can at least hold my own in a conversation about it.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah. So hopefully our listeners feel the same way. If you're listening to this and you have any thoughts or questions about blockchain,
Yeah.
we would love to hear from you. So hit us up on social media.
Let us know what you think.
Let us know your predictions for the future of blockchain. And until next time, happy exploring.